Today in our 2008 Honda CR-V, in conjunction with our Ford E450 chassis Thor motorhome, we'll be having a look at and installing the Roadmaster InvisiBrake supplemental braking system, part number RM-8700. Right, here's what our InvisiBrake unit looks like installed in our vehicle. Now what sets this apart from other braking systems on the market is that it's a permanent installation and that there is no setup required once we install it. You don't have to flip any switches each time you're going to flat tow your vehicle behind your motorhome. All you have to do is just hook it up and hit the road. Another thing that sets this apart from other systems on the market is this does offer us the most legroom and footroom underneath the dash once it's installed. We don't have to deal with having a bulky air cylinder attached to our pedal. As you can see, it does not interfere at all with my feet. I don't have to worry about kicking anything while I'm driving. We just have this small bracket which clamps to the brake pedal arm. It's actually recessed behind the brake pedal pad right here. The InvisiBrake system also comes with an indicator light which you can mount on the dash in your motorhome, which will come on when the brakes are being applied in your CR-V. Now, if the brakes were to be stuck on in the CR-V or the breakaway pin were to be pulled, after a little bit of time, after the indicator light has been lit on solid, we will get an audible buzzer sound to show us that we have a problem. Now, the only feature that we ever have to worry about adjusting on this is during our initial setup, it's this knob right here. This is all done by personal preference. So if you want to have more aggressive braking, just pull back on this knob here and you turn it to the right, and this will give you more brake pressure, which will slow down your CR-V behind your motorhome even quicker. If you want less brake pressure, you feel like it's stopping too abruptly or jerking your motorhome around, turn the knob to the left, it'll give you less brake pressure. And once you have it adjusted where you want it, just press it on in, and that'll lock it in place so you can't turn the knob anymore. This system is adjustable between 5 and 80 PSI, which is when it's in use, you will find that on this gauge over to the right. Another great feature about this braking system is that it does include a breakaway switch, which is located right here. What a breakaway switch were to do, in the unlikely event that your CR-V were to become detached from your motorhome, this pin will be pulled and the brakes inside your vehicle will be applied, bringing your CR-V to a safe stop. All right, to begin our install, we'll find ourselves in the driver's floorboard and underneath the driver's seat area. This is a fairly involved install, so we already took the liberty to remove our driver's seat. It's a fairly simple process. We have 4 14mm bolts, one at each corner of the seat that we removed. And then there's this wiring harness here, which clips to the bottom of our seat with this clip. We just pop that loose with a trim panel tool. And then there's 3 electrical connectors here. We'll start off with this white one. This is the power for our power seat and other functions inside the seat. There's a tab right here at the top. You just push down on this tab and pull back to separate. These 2 yellow ones here are for our airbag systems inside the seat. Now, you want to make sure your key is out of the ignition and you have your battery disconnected when you remove these connectors. These are a little bit different. You slide back on this tab, then you can pull it back. The smaller yellow one is the same way. It's a sliding black tab right here to unlock it. Now we're going to remove our threshold here for our driver's front door. We'll just grab up on it and pull up, and we'll set it aside. Now we'll remove this trim piece here right by our A-pillar, which is where our hood latch and gas door release are. We'll just grab this and work it out. There's only one clip that holds it in place right here. Now we'll peel back our carpet. We need to remove this footrest right here. There's a trick. If you lift up on the carpet a little bit, stick your hand up underneath, you can just pull up from underneath, and then it pops out, and the carpet is now loose. Slide it on back and over as much as we can. Okay, that gives us some room to work. All right, this is our bracket here, which we will attach to our brake pedal for a cable to attach to in order to pull the brake pedal down and apply the brakes in our vehicle. So we have one hole that's offset here, and then multiple holes over here that we can use to accommodate different thicknesses of brake pedals. What we need to do is figure out which holes we're going to use on our brake pedal. So we'll slide our bracket over with our screws. I'm going to try the closest ones here first that fits on our pedal. Make sure the screws will go through the same hole on the other bracket, which it does. So now we know which ones we're going to use. So what we can do is trim off the excess on both of our brackets with a rotary tool. Okay, I drew out a little square on our insulation here against our firewall. We need to trim out this insulation so I have a secure area on the firewall with just bare sheet metal to attach the pulley to. Okay, now we can attach our bracket to the pedal. We want this side with the tab facing out towards the driver's side, closest to the floorboard. Okay, when we install this and clamp it down, we want to have it at an angle so when the pedal's depressed, it's basically level. Our bolts have a 5/32 Allen key on them, and the nut is a 3/8. So we'll hold the nut still with a wrench, and we'll start to tighten down our bolts. Okay, that's a nice solid mount, and it's at the desired angle that we're looking for. And it's as low on the brake pedal as possible, giving us the maximum amount of leverage to give us a strong pull. This is our cable with our pulley right here. We have two nuts. We'll back off the one closest to the pulley. We want to make sure that they're both about centered with a gap in between them. This is how we're going to attach it to the bracket that's on our pedal. So we'll back off this one. Let it slide down onto the cable, and we'll slide this into the hole in our bracket. Push the stud down in, bring the nut back up, and thread the nut back on. So we have an equal amount of threads on both sides of our nuts, which is what we're looking for, which means we're centered. Now we'll tighten down both of those nuts using 2 1/2-inch wrenches in order to firmly attach it to the bracket. Okay, with those both tight, it's not going anywhere, and we have a solid attachment to the pedal. So we want the cable to basically hit the center of the pulley here in a straight line and not come off to the side like this, otherwise it could fray it, and leaving our sleeve right here in a straight line when it's depressed. I went ahead and marked a couple spots on our firewall to mark the edges of where our pulley bracket needs to sit to ensure that we're in a straight line. Okay, now we will attach our pulley in the position that we marked with the provided self-tapping screws. Okay, with all 4 of our screws securely mounted to the firewall, our pulley bracket is now secure. So when we press on the pedal, our cable goes through the pulley nice and straight and on the center, and it leaves right here in a straight line. We went ahead and cut a slit in our insulation right here so we could get our cable behind it so we can mount this part securely to the floor of the vehicle. Now when we mount this, we want to make sure that the cable leaves this part of the cable sleeve in a straight line as well. And we also want to make sure that we have enough slack in the cable so we have about half a ball sticking out of our pedal bracket. So right where we have it right here will be perfect. So we'll secure our cable right in this position with the anchor bracket, slide over it, and we'll secure it down in place with the 3/8 self-tapping screws. Okay, our cable's now securely mounted. All right, so we peeled up our carpet a little bit more so we have a clear access to our floorboard. Now our cable with our cylinder, we need to mount this in a position where it's out of the way and it's not gonna get hit by our feet while we're driving or anything like that. So we'll just put it right here in this area, and this will minimize the amount of bends and our cable. All right, now our cylinder, we can secure it to our floor here with the loom clamp. We'll just slide it over the skinny end of our cylinder, squeeze it on down, and we'll secure the loom clamp with one of our self-tapping screws. This will keep our cylinder from making noise and moving around in our vehicle. Okay, our electrical wires, including our power ground, the connection for the breakaway, and then the 4-pole flat wire, we routed through a grommet in the firewall. So you can see where they exit the firewall right there. And we routed that behind the electrical wires for our accelerator pedal, one behind our brake pedal, and behind our parking brake assembly, where they come out right here. And we will tuck them down underneath our carpet now. Now we're going to take our small air line right here and we'll plug it into the fitting on our cylinder. We'll just push it in, make sure it stops, and pull back to make sure it's secure. Now we'll measure off about how much of that air line we're going to need to connect to the fitting on our InvisiBrake unit. We'll use an airline tubing cutter, which we have available on our website as part number F9009. To give us a nice square cut. And we'll just push that on in there all the way, pull back and make sure it's secure. Now we'll take our 1/4-inch piece of rubber vacuum hose and we'll slide it onto our fitting here. Now we'll take our air line, which we routed through the firewall in the same place as the wires, following the same path. We'll measure off how much we're going to need of that and use our cutters again to cut it off. And we'll slide that into the end of the vacuum line. Just like that. Now we'll take our 4-pole flat connector. It's keyed, so it only goes in one way, and we'll plug it into the appropriate slot. Make sure it locks in place. Now we'll take our power and ground cable, the 4-pin Molex, and we'll plug that into this spot on the unit that matches it. Okay, with all of our connections made to the back of the InvisiBrake unit, we can now lift it up, pull it forward here a little bit, and place back in the carpet that goes underneath our driver's seat. And we'll stick it back down right here. I've already made some marks where it needs to sit right here on our carpet. It goes around the ears right here. So we'll lift it up again. We're gonna put some hook and loop tape on the back of this so it'll stick to our carpet. So we'll peel off an end from it, place it on the back of our unit. Press down nice and firmly to make sure it's secure. Take another piece, do the same on the other side. And then we'll just stick it over our marks. Now we'll put our carpet back in place. We cut a slit in the carpet to pass around our pulley right there, and this extra section right here, we'll just trim around the back of it and fold it back in place. We'll go ahead and reinstall our seat now. Now that we finished up inside the car, we find ourselves underneath the hood. This vacuum line right here goes from our engine all the way over to our brake booster. We need to tie into it. First, we're going to put a check valve in place right where I'm pointing. We use a pair of hose cutters here. Cut it. Here's our check valve. The black side goes towards the booster and the red side goes towards the engine. All right, perfect. Now right in the middle between our 2 yellow plastic clips that hold our vacuum line up to the windshield cowl, we're going to cut it again. Okay, now right where we cut it, we will install a T-fitting. Now on the smaller side of our T-fitting, we'll put on about a 2-inch segment of our 1/4-inch rubber vacuum hose that comes with our kit. Okay, now our 1/4-inch air line that runs from our pump control module inside the car. We'll measure off how much we're going to need, cut off the excess, and we'll stick that inside the other end of our rubber hose. That right there will handle all of our plumbing connections underneath the hood. Now we'll strip back the insulation from all the wires that we cut in half. Okay, we'll tie in our 4-pole flat wiring that goes from our InvisiBrake control unit to our side that's closest to it. We'll just match the colors up, brown to brown, yellow to yellow, green to green, and white to white. Now our kit comes with standard yellow butt connectors that are for 10 to 12 gauge wire. I'm going to replace those with some heat shrink butt connectors, which we have available on our website. Now the other end of our wire, which goes to the front of our vehicle on the 6-pole round connector that we have previously installed as part of our tow vehicle lighting wiring. We'll just twist the wire nice and tight, fold it back in half so it gets thicker, and we'll match the colors up, insert them in the appropriate butt connectors, and crimp them on down. And the white wires are ground. Our brown wire here is for our tail light and running light circuit. This will be our charge line wire to charge our vehicle's battery when our supplemental braking system is in use. And of course, it charges when the headlights are turned on in your RV. And our yellow wire is for our left turn signal and left brake light. This is how the InvisiBrake gets some of its input to apply the brakes in the vehicle. And our green wire is our right turn signal and right brake light, and again provides some of the signal for the InvisiBrake to operate properly. Now we'll use a heat gun, which we have available on our website, to shrink down our heat shrink butt connectors. Now we'll separate our black and red wires. And we'll just separate them as far down as we possibly can. Our black wires are ground. We'll measure off how much we're going to need to connect to our negative terminal on our battery. Cut off the excess. Strip back the insulation. And we'll attach our ring terminal that's provided in our kit. Crimp that on down. Our red wires are power wire. We are going to connect that to an inline fuse holder right here. So we'll cut off some of the excess. Our fuse holder has a constant loop of wire right now, so we'll cut it once to give us 2 separate ends. Strip back the insulation on both ends of our fuse holder. One end will attach a ring terminal. The other end will attach another one of our yellow heat shrink butt connectors. And we'll attach that to a red wire after we strip it back. And we'll shrink that down with our heat gun once again. Okay, we'll flip open the cover here in our positive battery post. We'll find a 10mm nut right there. We'll remove that. Slide our ring terminal on to the stud. Reinstall the nut. And we'll do the same for our negative. Take that ground off. Slide our black wire on, then our white wire. Install our nut. Tighten it back down. All right, we'll plug in our 20-amp fuse. Okay, and we'll close the dust cover on up over it. Okay, now we're going to cut a small slit in our positive post cover on our battery, just so it can still close back down in its original position. All right, perfect. All right, now that we've wrapped up things inside our car, we find ourselves inside our motorhome so we can install the indicator light. All right, now we need to locate our vehicle's brake controller port, because we're going to be using that versus using the additional wire that comes with our kit. It'll be located behind this cutout here above our radio and air conditioning vent. We'll use a trim panel tool to help pry it loose. Okay, this is our brake controller plug. There's two wires on here that we're going to be messing with. The blue wire, this is where our indicator light was routed to use. Our vehicle didn't have a brake controller, so it's perfectly fine. Cut that off the back of the connector. And then this black wire with the purple stripe, it's a big one right here in the middle. Cut that one off too. The other part of the connector we'll just leave alone. We'll strip back the insulation from both ends here. And we'll crimp on some butt connectors. So right here where I made a mark with my finger, that's where we're gonna put our indicator light. We'll put our sticker in place first. Make sure we have it nice and level and lined up. This will be easily seen while we're driving down the road in the driver's seat. And I made sure that our gear shifter won't be in the way of it when the vehicle's in drive. So with that placed on our dash, we will now use the hole in the middle to drill a 5/16 hole. I've already verified that there's nothing behind the dash that's going to get damaged, like any wires or anything like that. Okay, this is our indicator light. We're going to stick another butt connector on each of our ends and crimp it on down into place. And we're going to use some red and white wire that we have laying around. You can find it on our website as part number 16-1-1. You'll need about 4 feet or so. So order a quantity of 4 because it is sold by the foot. So now we'll strip back some of the white wire that we provided, and we'll stick that into the butt connector for the white wire and crimp that down. And we'll do the same for the red wire. Now we'll take the end of our wires, do one at a time, feed them through the hole in our sticker, and we'll push in our indicator LED. Now we'll reach on in and pull up our red and our white wires. Now we'll strip out the insulation from both ends. Now we'll take our little speaker, cut off some of the excess wire from it, strip out the insulation from both ends on it. Okay, and we'll tie in the red wire to the red wire. This will go into our butt connector on the blue wire on our brake controller harness. We'll tie in the white wire and the white wire, and that'll go into the butt connector on our black and purple wire. Okay, now if all of our connections are made, we'll tuck the speaker and all the wires back into the compartment and reinstall our little cubby hold. And that completes our look at and installation of the Roadmaster InvisiBrake Supplemental Braking System, part number RM-8700 on our 2008 Honda CR-V in conjunction with our Ford E450 chassis Thor motorhome.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com.